water wheel here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, where the video is streaming at democracynow.org. We're broadcasting on Free Speech TV, on Link TV, on both satellite networks. We are broadcasting on Pacifica radio stations, community stations all over the world as we bring you this 2-hour special called Uprising in Egypt. I'm Amy Goodman in New York. Sharif Kouddous and Anjali Kamat are in Cairo, and we have professors joining us of Middle East studies from around the country. But right now, I want to turn to Ahdaf Soueif. She is the acclaimed Egyptian novelist, has been in Tahrir Square for the last days. Welcome to Democracy Now! Describe what's happening on the ground now as we get these conflicting reports of whether President Mubarak has resigned as head of the party, going back and forth throughout today.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you and to be on Democracy Now! Well, what has happened is that the secretariat, or part of the secretariat of the party, has resigned, and they've sort of appointed somebody else in there. I'm not really sure whether this is meant to be some kind of, again, a token, a placebo for the protesters to say that part of the apparatus of the party is gone, or whether it is actually people jumping ship. It's too early to tell because the news only officially went out about an hour ago.
And tell us, for people who are not there, around the world who are watching right now, what the atmosphere is like there and what this means for the people of Egypt, for you.
Okay, well, look, Amy, the atmosphere on the square is absolutely brilliant. I happen not to be there right now because I've been running around doing media stuff, but I was there this morning. I was there until after midnight last night, and I know so many people who are there who are constantly filming. And the atmosphere on the square is amazing. And yesterday we were saying that this is truly democracy in action. What is happening is people have settled down. They've been there now for, what is it, eight days. Some people leave and come back, and others are just permanent there. There are all sorts of different groups and different activities, all of which sort of, kind of contact each other and are fluid. People look like they have rediscovered themselves. They look like they're having some kind of a vision, and they articulate things like, They told us we were extreme. They told us we were fanatic. They were dividing one from the other. But here we are, and this is about Egypt and about Egyptians. And what's happening is that, well, for the first time in my adult life, I am listening to people who are discussing politics openly, discussing systems of government, discussing what might work and what might not, technicalities of arriving at what we want, which is basically free and fair elections. You get people just walking along, talking about this. You get groups sitting around. If you go into the square, if you kind of look at the square from above, you will see, like, hundreds of little circles of people sitting and discussing. We were just sort of standing near one last night, and people said, come and talk with us. Come and talk with us. We all need to listen to each other. And we just joined it and sat down. And one guy was a museum guard. One guy was a cook. One woman was a nurse. And we sat there, and people were talking about what they wanted to see in their country. And what happens is that when an idea gains a certain consensus, then other groups are invited to talk about it, and eventually, if it becomes strong enough, it reaches one of the tannoys, one of the microphone systems, and then it sort of talks about over there, and people will either boo it or they will cheer it, and that is how an opinion is being formed on Tahrir Square. It is incredible.
We're speaking with Ahdaf Soueif, acclaimed Egyptian novelist who, interestingly, will come to New York. At least that's the plan, to give the Edward Said lecture at Columbia University. Professor Khalidi with us from Columbia. But we're talking right now, and there is so much that will be happening in this month. I wanted to ask you, Ahdaf, about your brother-in-law, Mohamed Saif, director of the Hosni Mubarak Law Center, which was raided earlier this week. What's the latest on that?
The latest is that they were released. He and all his colleagues were released, in fact, today. They say that once they were actually with the military police, they were treated well, and that it was the military police were having chats with them one-on-one, and sort of saying that the country was going through a very difficult phase and so on. But they were the frightener, and what was clearly very intentional was that when they took them away, basically they operate out of an office on the 5th floor of a building in downtown Cairo, and everybody knows it. And the floor below them has another human rights organization. So basically the police went up there and they dragged them out, and they had already spoken in the street and inflamed the street and said that they had caught Iranian and Hezbollah agents and foreigners who were working to destabilize the country, and they were going to bring them out. So, and there was actually an American Human Rights Watch person with them, and so they took them out, and as they were taking them out, they were dragging them out, and people were hitting them, and they were saying to them, look, see what people would do to you. We're protecting you from these people. And so they had that little experience, and then they were bundled into a microbus, and then once they were handed over to the military police, they were treated with respect, and everything was kind of done correctly. Now, they know who the person is in the street who actually even paid for the expenses of that raid to take place. And he is a car spare part, who is a member of the National Democratic Party, and this was him doing a favor to the party.
Ahdaf Soueif, I wanted to turn to a video recording that was posted to Facebook on January 18th and then went viral across Egypt. It was recorded by a young Egyptian named Asma Mahfouz. In the video, the veiled 26-year-old activist appeals to her fellow citizens to join her in protest at Tahrir Square on January 25th to demand their rights.
4 Egyptians have set themselves on fire to protest humiliation and hunger and poverty and degradation they had to live with for 30 years. 4 Egyptians have set themselves on fire thinking maybe we can have a revolution like Tunisia. Maybe we can have freedom, justice, honor, and human dignity. Today, one of these 4 has died, and I saw people commenting and saying, "May God forgive him, he committed a sin and killed himself for nothing." People have some shame. I posted that I, a girl, am going down to Tahrir Square and I will stand alone. And I'll hold up a banner. Perhaps people will show some honor. I even wrote my number so maybe people will come down with me. No one came except 3 guys. 3 guys and 3 armored cars of riot police. And tens of hired thugs and officers came to terrorize us. They shoved us roughly away from the people. But as soon as we were alone with them, they started to talk to us. They said, "Enough, these guys who burned themselves were psychopaths." Of course, on all national media, whoever dies in protest is a psychopath. If they were psychopaths, why did they burn themselves at the Parliament building? I'm making this video to give you one simple message. We want to go down to Tahrir Square on January 25th. If we still have honor and want to live in dignity on this land, we have to go down on January 25th. We'll go down and demand our rights, our fundamental human rights. I won't even talk about any political rights. We just want our human rights and nothing else. This entire government is corrupt, a corrupt president and a corrupt security force. These self-immolators were not afraid of death, but were afraid of security forces. Can you imagine that? Are you going to kill yourselves too? Or are you completely clueless? I'm going down on January 25th, and from now till then, I'm going to distribute flyers in the streets. I will not set myself on fire. If the security forces want to set me on fire, let them come and do it. If you think yourself a man, come with me on January 25th. Whoever says women shouldn't go to protests because they will get beaten, let him have some honor and manhood and come with me on January 25th. Whoever says it is not worth it because there will only be a handful of people, I want to tell him, you are the reason behind this, and you are a traitor, just like the president or any security cop who beats us in the streets. Your presence with us will make a difference, a big difference. Talk to your neighbors, your colleagues, friends and family, and tell them to come. They don't have to come to Tahrir Square. Just go down anywhere and say it, that we are free human beings. Sitting at home and just following us on news or Facebook leads to our humiliation. Leads to my own humiliation. If you have honor and dignity as a man, come. Come and protect me and other girls in the protest. If you stay at home, then you deserve all that is being done, and you will be guilty before your nation and your people. And you'll be responsible for what happens to us on the streets while you sit at home. Go down to the street, send SMSs, post it on the net, make people aware. You know your own social circle, your building, your family, your friends. Tell them to come with us. Bring 5 people or 10 people, if each one of us manages to bring 5 or 10 to Tahrir Square, and talk to people and tell them, this is enough. Instead of setting ourselves on fire, let us do something positive. It will make a difference, a big difference. Never say there's no hope. Hope disappears only when you say there's none. So long as you come down with us, there will be hope. Don't be afraid of the government. Fear none but God. God says he will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. Don't think you can be safe anymore. None of us are. Come down with us and demand your rights, my rights, your family's rights. I am going down on January 25th, and I will say no to corruption, no to this regime.
Again, that video posting by the young Egyptian activist Asma Mahfouz. It went viral across Egypt in the week before the unprecedented protests in Cairo's Tahrir Square, and now across all of Egypt, part of the April 6th movement. Many have credited the video as being the call to action that started the uprising on January 25th. We're also joined here in New York by Mustafa Omar, an Egyptian-American activist and writer who lives in New York. In fact, Asma posted another video right after January 25th.
She actually did, and it's really important, Amy, because women in Egypt bear the brunt of the economic crisis. They have to run their families on very small salaries. They have to face sexual harassment. They've never been protected by the police. The other thing, real quick, your guests have talked about the labor movement and the strike movement. Women actually have been a big part, if not the majority of the people have actually gone out on strike in the last few years, urging the men to be militant. I would like your viewers to keep that in mind. She actually had a wonderful video on 27th. She had just returned from Tahrir Square after a big day of protest, and she was very excited, very exhilarated, and she actually told a fantastic story. She said, for the first time in my life, there was about 600,000 or 700,000 people in the square. She said, for the first time in my life, I've never been sexually harassed, and all the young men in the square treated me as a human being. And this is a major, major step forward, especially for people that don't understand that women in that part of the world are not just sheep.
Ahdaf Soueif.